There we go, and welcome. Let me see if I can get the chat up where I can see it. There we go. Okay. Okay, so we get the chat going. So let's see. Welcome, Margie and Bill and Jean. I see Patty, you're here. John and Dawn. Is your mom with you? I think. And Angela, good morning. Well, good afternoon. Let's see. Nadine, and I think Steve's probably with you. And Vicky, you made it. Good job. I made it. Good job. Nancy, great to be with you as well. Cedric, good to see you, brother. Good to have you here. And Carol, good to have you here as well. Vicky, welcome. And John and Susie, good to have you here. We'll get started here. I've got some music that we can stream. It's not copywritten, so got clear of that. And we'll start with the Stations of the Cross. The wording comes from a booklet called Biblical Stations of the Cross, and the pictures actually are pictures I drew, copying some pictures that are from that bulletin. Mickey, good to have you here. Welcome. Let's see. So loud and clear. Good. And Anne, good to see you. Good afternoon. I don't know a whole lot about the Stations of the Cross. I've used them now and again over the years on Good Friday, just as mostly a personal devotion, although we've had opportunity to share in the church. And from what I understand, they were initiated, I don't know, around the 13th or 14th century to replace pilgrimages that some Christians took to the Holy Lands when the Turks took over the Holy Lands and the Christians from Europe couldn't go anymore. So they were a mini pilgrimage. And I think I was reading this morning, by the end of the 15th century, they were in every Catholic church. The Western Church then, pre-Reformation. So they might be a little new for us. These, again, are biblically based. I guess the original, some of the original Stations of the Cross are based on traditional events that transpired on this tragic and ultimately extraordinarily hopeful day. So let's just begin. Gonna begin with the scripture passage from Luke 22, 41 through 46 that describes the time in the garden. He walked away about a stone's throw and knelt down and prayed, "Father, if you are willing, please take this cup of suffering away from me. Yet I want your will to be done, not mine." And then an angel from heaven appeared and strengthened him. He prayed more fervently, and he was in such agony of spirit that his sweat fell to the ground like great drops of blood. At last he stood up again and returned to the disciples, only to find them asleep, exhausted from grief. "Why are you sleeping?" he asked them. "Get up and pray so that you will not give in to temptation." Pray with me. Jesus, we see you in the garden, praying in the darkness of night. Your anguished prayer is one of deep struggle with the Father's will. While you agonize over the Father's will and are strengthened to fulfill his plan, your disciples, overcome with sadness, can do nothing but give themselves over to sleep. As we begin this journey with you, Jesus, help us to see that for you, it was a journey of love. May we learn from this walk how to follow you more closely and accept the love that you have for us. Oh Jesus, wake us from our sleep. Help us to face life's difficulties honestly, knowing that we can trust in God. Strengthen us in the time of our trials. May our prayer always be an expression of all that we are and all that we do. We love you, Jesus. Teach us how to pray. Lord, have mercy. Christ, have mercy. Lord, have mercy. The second station, Jesus is betrayed and arrested. Immediately as Jesus said this, Judas, one of the 12 disciples, arrived with a crowd of men armed with swords and clubs. They had been sent by the leading priests, the teachers of religious law, and the elders. The traitor, Judas, had given them a prearranged signal. You will know which one to arrest when I greet him with a kiss. And then you can take him away under guard. As soon as they arrived, Judas walked up to Jesus. Rabbi, he exclaimed, and gave him the kiss. And then the others grabbed Jesus and arrested him. Jesus, as you wake your disciples, one who has not slept arrives with an angry crowd. Judas reveals your identity to them with a kiss. His act of affection is a signal to point you out. As the one who loves. But is rejected by his own. Oh, Jesus. We are so quick to greet you with affection in our prayer and worship. But how often do our external words and actions conceal our hearts that are easily turned from you? We love you, Jesus. Help us to love you with all our hearts. Lord, have mercy. Christ, have mercy. Lord, have mercy. The third station. Jesus is condemned by the Sanhedrin. Then the high priest stood up and said to Jesus, "Well, aren't you going to answer these charges? What do you have to say for yourself?" But Jesus remained silent. And then the high priest said to him, "I demand in the name of the living God, tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God." And Jesus replied, "You have said it. And in the future you will see the Son of Man seated in the place of power at God's right hand." And coming on the clouds of heaven. And then the high priest tore his clothing to show his horror and said, "Blasphemy! Why do we need other witnesses? You've all heard this blasphemy. What is your verdict?" "Guilty." They shouted, "He deserves to die." "Jesus, your words are blasphemy to the ears of the high priest." He tears his garments, unable to see the presence of God and the one who stands before him arrested and accused. He cannot believe in a God who, because of such great love, would willingly become so powerless. Oh, Jesus, we can be so limited in our vision. We find it difficult to look beyond our narrow expectations and see you as you are. Give us the grace to hear your words clearly and to follow you in truth. We love you, Jesus. Reveal to us what God is like. Lord, have mercy. Christ, have mercy. Lord, have mercy. The fourth station. Peter denies knowing Jesus. Meanwhile, Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard. a servant girl came over and said to him, "You were one of those with Jesus, the Galilean." But Peter denied it. In front of everyone. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. And later, out by the gate, another servant girl noticed him and said to those standing around, "This man was with Jesus of Nazareth." Again, Peter denied it, this time with an oath. "I don't even know the man," he said. A little later, some of the other bystanders came over to Peter and said, "You must be one of them. We can tell by your Galilean accent." And Peter swore, "A curse on me if I'm lying. I don't know the man." And immediately the rooster crowed. Suddenly Jesus' words flashed through Peter's mind. "Before the rooster crows, you will deny 3 times that you even knew me." And he went away, weeping bitterly. "Jesus, you told Peter that he would deny you 3 times before the rooster could crow." He did not believe you. He swore that he would never deny you. And that, in fact, he was willing to die for you. Peter felt that he knew himself better than you knew him. But now as dawn approaches and the rooster crows, he sees the truth. Oh, Jesus. We set out to follow you, but then quickly turn, going our own way. We're afraid to acknowledge you in front of others, but you speak to us in the midst of our denial. We love you, Jesus. Keep us faithful to you. Lord, have mercy. Christ, have mercy. Lord, have mercy. The fifth station. Then Pilate called together the leading priests and other religious leaders, along with the people, and he announced his verdict. "You brought this man to me, accusing him of leading a revolt. I have examined him thoroughly on this point, in your presence, and find him innocent. Herod came to the same conclusion and sent him back to us. Nothing this man has done calls for the death penalty." But the mob shouted louder and louder, demanding that Jesus be crucified. And their voices prevailed. So Pilate sentenced Jesus to die as they demanded. Jesus, Pilate perceives your innocence, but the crowd insists on guilt. Hearing their persistent shouts, Pilate sets aside the judgment of his conscience and the decision is made. He hands you over to be crucified. Oh, Jesus, how often do we let the threatening voice of the crowd overwhelm the voice of conscience? Fill us with compassion for the outcast and commitment to the truth. We love you, Jesus. Lead us beyond the crowd. Christ, have mercy. Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy. The sixth station. Jesus is scourged and crowned with thorns. The soldiers took Jesus into the courtyard of the governor's headquarters, called the Praetorium, and called out the entire regiment. They dressed him in a purple robe, and they wove thorn branches into a crown and put it on his head. And then they saluted him and taunted, "Hail, King of the Jews." And they struck him on the head with a reed stick. Spit on him, and dropped to their knees in mock worship. Jesus, soldiers of an earthly realm mock your kingship. You are so powerless in their eyes, so weak, the ruler of a kingdom that cannot be seen and therefore must not exist. They treat you as a foolish impostor caught in a lie. Oh, Jesus. How often do we look for the kingdom with the eyes of the world rather than with the eyes of faith? We forget your promise that your kingdom is among us. Help us to see your strength in our weakness, your reign in our powerlessness. We love you, Jesus. Establish your rule over us. Lord, have mercy. Christ, have mercy. Lord, have mercy. The seventh station. Jesus takes up his cross. Then Pilate turned Jesus over to them to be crucified. So they took Jesus away. Carrying the cross by himself, he went to the place called Place of the Skull. In Hebrew, Golgotha. Jesus, like Isaac carrying the wood to the mountain, you set out with the wood of the cross. But unlike him, you will not ask your Father where the lamb is, because you know you are the lamb of the sacrifice. You now begin your journey with the cross. Oh, Jesus, you carry a cross which is given unjustly. You willingly bear the burden of our sinfulness and accept the cross of our guilt. There is no greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. We love you, Jesus. Help us to show this love in our lives. Lord, have mercy. Christ, have mercy. Lord, have mercy. The eighth station. Simon of Cyrene helps Jesus. As they led Jesus away, a man named Simon, who was from Cyrene, happened to be coming from the countryside. The soldiers seized him and put the cross on him and made him carry it behind Jesus. Jesus, the torture you experienced at the hands of the soldiers left you weak. When you prayed in the garden that the will of the Father be done, and the angel was sent to strengthen you. Now, as you seek to fulfill the Father's will, he sends Simon to help you. Oh, Jesus, strengthen us on our journey. Open our hearts to the help you offer through the kindness of others. Open our eyes to the needs of those who walk beside us. We love you, Jesus. Lighten our burdens. Lord, have mercy. Christ, have mercy. Lord, have mercy. The ninth station. Jesus meets the weeping women. A large crowd trailed behind, including many grief-stricken women. But Jesus turned and said to them, "Daughters of Jerusalem, don't weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For the days are coming when they will say, 'Fortunate indeed are the women who are childless, the wombs that have not borne a child, and the breasts that have never nursed.' People will beg the mountains, 'Fall on us,' and plead with the hills, 'Bury us.' For if these things are done when the tree is green, what will happen when it is dry?" Jesus, after being silent, "You speak." You turn the eyes of the women away from your suffering and toward the destructive powers of sin. You warn them not to shed their tears for you, but rather for themselves and their children. If you, the innocent one, can suffer so, what will be the fate of the guilty? Oh, Jesus, the wood is now very dry. Set fire to the world so that it might burn with your love. Destroy all hatred. Fill us with joy again. Teach us to mourn the way things are. Show us the way they could be. We love you, Jesus. Weep for us. Lord, have mercy. Christ, have mercy. Lord, have mercy. The 10th station. Jesus is crucified. When they came to a place called the Skull, they nailed him to the cross. And the criminals were also crucified, one on his right and one on his left. And Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing." And the soldiers gambled for his clothes by throwing dice. The crowd watched and the leaders scoffed. "He saved others," they said. "Let him save himself if he's really God's Messiah, the chosen one." And the soldiers mocked him too. by offering him a drink of sour wine. And they called out to him, "If you're the King of the Jews, save yourself." A sign was fastened to the cross above him with these words, "This is the King of the Jews." Jesus, your suffering continues as nails are driven into your hands and feet and taunting jeers are hurled at your body, imprisoned on the cross. Yet to those who mock and challenge you, you offer no reproach, only forgiveness and compassion for them in their ignorance. Oh Jesus, how often we have acted as if the way of the cross were unnecessary and too difficult. We believe we know a better way, a way worn down by the crowd. We find that path goes nowhere. Forgive us. We do not know what we are doing. We love you, Jesus. By your wounds, heal us. The 11th station. Jesus promises paradise to the crucified thief. One of the criminals hanging beside him scoffed, "So you're the Messiah, are you? Prove it by saving yourself and us too while you're at it." But the other criminal protested, "Don't you fear God, even when you've been sentenced to die? We deserve to die for our crimes, but this man hasn't done anything wrong." And then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Jesus replied, "I assure you, today you will be with me in paradise." Jesus, two others are nailed on either side of you. One challenges you to release him now, and the other asks you to be freed with you in your kingdom. One sees only weakness, and the other sees power and is able to trust in a promise of everlasting life with you as his time in this world comes to an end. Oh Jesus, look upon us now. See us in our need and hear us as we cry out to you. Help us to trust you in difficult circumstances. Give us eyes to see your power in helpless times, to see your kingdom in all we encounter. We love you, Jesus. Remember us. Lord, have mercy. Christ, have mercy. Lord, have mercy. The 12th station. Jesus cares for his mother. Standing near the cross were Jesus' mother and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother standing there beside the disciple he loved, he said to her, Dear woman, here is your son. And he said to this disciple, here is your mother. And from then on, this disciple took her into his home. Jesus, you give your mother to the disciple you love. Even as you face death, you entrust those whom you love most into each other's care. Your dying is marked by giving and by concern for the ones who remain. You do not leave us as orphans. You've promised your Spirit to your church and at the cross. The church is born. Oh, Jesus, help us to see that we are the disciples you love, and you've given us each other. We pray that we might allow the Spirit to give us life as sisters and brothers joined in mutual care. We love you, Jesus. Bind us as one. Lord, have mercy. Christ, have mercy. Lord, have mercy. The 13th station, Jesus dies. By this time it was noon, and darkness fell across the whole land until 3 o'clock, and light from the sun was gone. And suddenly the curtain in the sanctuary of the temple was torn down the middle. Then Jesus shouted, "Father, I entrust my spirit into your hands." And with those words he breathed his last. When the Roman officer overseeing the execution saw what had happened, he worshipped God and said, "Surely this man was innocent." Jesus, the word spoken by the Father, you now return to him, having accomplished the purpose for which you were sent. Your trust in the Father remains even amid the dark clouds of death. O Jesus, may we too accomplish the purpose for which we were created. Help us to commit ourselves into the Father's hands, to trust in him and believe in his love for us, a love that your death reveals to us. May your dying never be in vain. We love you, Jesus. Help us to die to ourselves and live for you. Lord, have mercy. Christ, have mercy. Lord, have mercy. The 14th station. Jesus is buried. Then he took the body down from the cross and wrapped it in a long sheet of linen cloth and laid it in a new tomb that had been carved out of rock. This was done late on Friday afternoon, the day of preparation, as the Sabbath was about to begin. As his body was taken away, the women from Galilee followed and saw the tomb where his body was placed. And then they went home and prepared spices and ointments to anoint his body. But by the time they were finished, the Sabbath had begun, and so they rested, as required by the law. Jesus, now the time of surrender, of being at rest, begins. It is the seventh day when God rested from the work of creation, and you, the Son of God, rest and await the dawn of the eighth day, when all will be made new, and we wait with you. O Jesus, teach us to rest. Deliver us from thinking that everything depends upon our actions. Help us to be patient and trusting that God will bring about the completion of his creation through you. We love you, Jesus. Fill us with your peace. Well, thank you for joining me and for walking this journey together with the Stations of the Cross. I've seen several iterations that insist on placing Christ's resurrection at the end of this pilgrimage. And though we know it's coming, perhaps moving too quickly to Sunday prohibits us from grieving and from honoring this great love. So let me invite you to rest and grief and sit for a moment with the silence of this day and of Saturday before we celebrate. Because not to know this grief and not to know the cost of love and life is to perhaps miss everything come Sunday. Sunday will come and we'll gather together at 8:30. I look forward to being with you, and I look forward to a wonderful celebration together, a very different kind of celebration, but I look forward to it nonetheless. And there are a lot of good things coming, dancing and trumpets and music. I'm looking very much forward to to this wonderful and awesome celebration, but let's not rush. Let's wait and watch with Christ, especially now. Not for enjoyment, but for a deep, deep appreciation for all that God has in store for us in Christ. And so God be with you till we meet again. We will not, by the way, meet for prayer at noon tomorrow, but take a moment, if you will, sometime tomorrow, to just spend some time in prayer, and we'll be praying together, though not online. God be with you.